Hi everyone, my name's Paul from Bernie's Learnings. So what we're going to be talking about today is what are the drawbacks of recorded macros. So usually if you're searching on this video and clicking on this video, it usually means that you're somebody that has either started to investigate the possibility of automating some of your tasks in Excel and you've found macros, recording macros is a good way to start off. And you're probably wondering what's the value of going and learning VBA. Okay, so we want to talk about what the disadvantages are. So the main disadvantage of recorded macros, and I would say that when I learned to write VBA code, the first place I went was recording macros. So it's a good stepping stone anyway. But basically the limitations of them are that you can really only record things like actions on a spreadsheet. And you can't, and basically what the Excel will do is it will generate all of this very long convoluted type code if you go and look in what it's generating, which generally means it runs a bit slower and the code's a bit inefficient. But the real disadvantage of it is that it limits what you can do with the macros that you create. So for example, if you want to get user input, so let's say you're running a sales report, you want to get some information on a certain customer, you need that user person to the user to actually give which customer you want that data on, and then run the automation to be able to pull that data as an example. You cannot do that with a recorded macro. So basically, you can take the power of the macro sort of so much further by learning to write VBA code. And the other things that you can also do is you'll be amazed what you can do with VBA code. You can do things like send emails directly out of Excel. So for example, in the past, I've created systems where I've had to do a quotation for a sales rep. I didn't want to go to my emails and copy a file and then place it in there and then send it. And so I just programmed it to just send. Once I'd click the button, decided on my sender, who I was sending it to, it would automatically send out, attach the file and send it out through my email. So it's very useful like that. So it just gives a lot greater control of what you're doing, but there is the downside of VBA coding is it does take a little bit of time to get into. And we will be publishing in the next couple of weeks, we hope, a bit of how to get going with VBA code. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to the channel and you'll see those videos as they come out, which we're in the process of preparing them right now. But just to show you what the difference is, I'm going to take you across the computer now, and what we'll do is just show you some examples of things that I've created to show you kind of the power of getting that user input and the real advantages of learning to write VBA. To show an example of the values of learning to write VBA, I've got a file here that I developed for a company that I used to work for. And I was in the lab as a chemist, running some labs, and we had lots of people making formulas for trial purposes, trialing new raw materials or whatever. And what used to happen before I came into the lab is that each one of this product here, for example, might be made in the factory somewhere. Now I'm purposely showing you, because this is an actual commercial file, I'm showing you things that are not of any commercial value, not to give away the secrets of the company that I used to previously work for. But basically what would happen is that they would go out to the factory and there would be these laminated cards, and they would go and they type in, the ingredients, and then they might have the quantity, and because it was a factory card batch, it would be in kilos, and it would be 1,500 kilos or something like that. And then they would have to rescale it, and all of this took a lot of time. So what we wanted to do was develop a system to be able to allow the chemist to not spend any time on that sort of thing and focus on actually doing the work that we wanted to do them. So we developed this system. So essentially what we did is got a drop down of a report of every formula that was in the computer system. And so then we could get the user could tell us which formula they wanted. Okay, and if we select another one, there's a whole list of all the different possible formulas. Now I'm intentionally choosing formulas that I know are of no commercial value. And it would allow me to rescale that. Okay. And in this case, we got one that's a little bit more complex. But basically, that made it very easy because I could just rely on the user's input to be able to give me the to call the information that they wanted. However, on top of this, one of the things that we did as well, which again will show you kind of where writing VBA comes into its own compared to recording macros, is that these files, this is a job file template. And each time we created a new job, and the lab that I was working would probably do 500, 600, 700 jobs a year, they would create a new file. And the problem was that each and every time the file was created, was renamed whatever the job number was and stored in a certain location. What would happen is that, of course, the data that is in the background of this file, which the data is being called from, would remain static at that point in time. And if you had hundreds of files, if you wanted to keep all of your raw material information up to date and your formula information up to date, you needed to come up with a solution. And the solution that was quite simple in that we had some central data, and each and every time this file was open, it would automatically open the centralized file and copy the data into the file so that every time that any one of these files was opened, no matter how many were there, if there's literally 1,000 of them, they would get updated without even the user having to do anything. So the files were always updated with the latest information. And again, that's a good example of the advantages of learning VBA code. They allow you to solve just a lot more problems that other people can't. So it is worth considering learning to write it. And as I said, I highly recommend that you visit our course when it comes out on how to write VBA, which of course will be free on this channel, and subscribe so you know when it's coming out. All right, guys, thanks very much. I hope you found this useful, and we'll see you next time.